In 1939, the world was on the edge of a cliff. Adolf Hitler's Nazi war machine was the most terrifying force ever seen. They had the best tanks, the most experienced pilots, and a plan to conquer the entire planet. But if you looked across the Atlantic Ocean at the United States, you wouldn't see a superpower. You would see a ghost. In 1939, the United States Army was ranked 17th in the world. To put that in perspective, they were smaller and weaker than the armies of Romania and Portugal. They had more horses than tanks. Their soldiers were training with wooden sticks because they didn't have enough rifles. They were amateurs. They were unprepared. They were a joke to the European powers. But just 4 years later, something impossible happened. That same joke of an army was fighting on 3 continents at once. They were crushing the Nazi invincibles in Africa and Europe, and they were dismantling the Japanese Empire in the Pacific. How? Most people think it was just about money or building more stuff, but that's a lie. The real reason America was impossible to defeat isn't found in a factory. It's found in a secret philosophy that no other nation understood. A secret that would change the course of human history forever. Whenever people talk about World War II, they use one word, production, and they have a point. The numbers are staggering. Between 1941 and 1945, American factories produced 300,000 aircraft. That isn't a typo. 300,000 planes. They built 88,000 tanks and 2.4 million trucks. At the famous Willow Run plant in Michigan, a massive B-24 bomber rolled off the assembly line every 60 minutes. Every hour, a new giant took to the sky. In the shipyards, Henry Kaiser's workers were building Liberty ships, so fast that one ship was completed in just 4.5 days. But here is the catch. Production alone does not win wars. Germany had incredible production numbers too. They had the Tiger tank, a steel monster that could destroy 5 American tanks before breaking a sweat. Japan was building the most advanced battleships in history. The Soviet Union was matching American steel output by 1943. If everyone was building weapons, why did America's weapons feel so much more unstoppable? The secret wasn't just how much they built. It was what they built and how they connected it all together. The U.S. Army realized something radical that no one else truly mastered. They called it combined arms warfare. Think of it like an orchestra. In other armies, the tanks fought their battle, the infantry fought theirs, and the planes flew somewhere else. But in the American system, they were all connected by one thing, the radio. The U.S. invested more in communication than almost any other army. Every tank had a radio. Every squad leader had access to a radio. If an American squad walked into a village and a German sniper fired a single bullet, the Americans didn't just fire back. They used the radio. Within minutes, the tanks arrived. If the tanks couldn't do it, they called the planes. If the planes were busy, they called the heavy artillery 10 miles away. That one German sniper wasn't just fighting 10 men. He was fighting the entire weight of the United States military, all hitting him at the exact same second. It was a living machine. If you touched one part of it, the whole machine hit you back. But let's be honest. In the beginning, this machine was broken. February 1943, North Africa. The Americans had just entered the war, and they were overconfident. They met the Desert Fox General Erwin Rommel. Rommel was a genius. He lured the Americans into a trap at Kasserine Pass and tore them to pieces. The Americans panicked. They abandoned their equipment and ran. Rommel looked at his officers and said, "These Americans are not soldiers. They are amateurs. They will fold under pressure." Rommel made the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't realize that the American system was designed to do something the Nazi system couldn't. It was designed to learn from failure. While the Germans were arrogant and refused to change, the Americans analyzed every single mistake. They fired the weak generals. They see ya, and their radio codes. They upgraded their tank tactics. Just 6 months later, those same amateur soldiers pushed Rommel's veterans out of Africa entirely. The American machine wasn't just big. It was a learning machine. Now we come to the most secret reason of all. It's about leadership. Most armies in World War II were top-down. The general gave an order, the colonel passed it down, and the private executed it. If the officer was killed, the unit froze. They didn't know what to do because no one was there to tell them. The U.S. Army did the opposite. They gave power to the NCOs, the sergeants and corporals. They called this mission command. The training was simple. I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm telling you why we are doing it. This meant that if a lieutenant was killed on a beach in Normandy, the sergeant didn't wait for orders. He took over. If the sergeant died, the corporal took over. Even a 19-year-old private knew the objective. He knew he had to get over that wall or take that hill. On D-Day, when the plans fell apart and the generals were stuck on ships, it was the small groups of leaderless soldiers who won the day. They didn't wait for a general. They looked at each other and said, "Let's go." You could kill the head of the American army, but the body would just keep moving forward. There is a famous story from the end of the war. A German officer was captured and taken behind American lines. He saw something that made him realize Germany had already lost. He didn't see a new superweapon. He saw an ice cream barge. The U.S. Navy had a ship dedicated solely to making ice cream for the sailors. Think about that. While German soldiers were eating horses and freezing to death because they didn't have winter coats, the Americans were shipping chocolate, Coca-Cola, and fresh turkey dinners across an entire ocean. This was logistics. The U.S. Army was the first industrialized army. They didn't just bring guns. They brought a lifestyle. They had the best fed, best clothed, and best supplied soldiers in history. A German soldier sitting in a dirty foxhole, starving and out of ammo, would look across the field and see an American soldier eating a Hershey's bar. That wasn't just food. That was psychological warfare. It was a message. We have so much power that we can afford to give our soldiers luxury while you die for a piece of bread. You can't defeat a country that treats a world war like a logistics project. It wasn't the tanks. It wasn't the planes. It wasn't even the atom bomb. The secret was the process. The United States built a system where every piece reinforced every other piece. The factories fed the strategy. The strategy shaped the training. The training empowered the individual soldier. And the individual soldier generated the lessons that went back to the factories. You could defeat an American unit. You could sink an American ship. But you could never defeat the process that analyzed that defeat, fixed the problem, and sent a better equipped, better trained force back at you within months. The U.S. Army didn't just win World War II. They outlived, outthought, and outsupplied it. But as the war ended, a new question emerged. If the American machine was so powerful, why did it take so long to win? And what happened when this machine finally met a foe it couldn't simply outproduce? That is a story for another time. If you want to see part 2, where we look at the secret German technology that almost broke this machine. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the ruins of history. Subscribe now and comment part 2 below.